Hell. With its sulphurous lakes, gore-soaked furnishings, and population of perpetually tormented souls, it's not most people's first choice of place to spend the rest of eternity. However, if games are anything to go by, it is a place many gamers and developers enjoy visiting, especially when there's a chance to shotgun a few demons while they're down there. Many games feature a version of Hell or the Underworld in some capacity, typically as the unseen and enigmatic source of demonic invasion, or the scene of their final showdown with the big bad. The Doom and Diablo series are prime examples. Today though, we're looking for more than a brief stunt in Lucifer's lachrymose locale. We want the full tour, minus the torture. The following games took the idea of Hell and ran with it, setting almost the entirety of their runtime in its fiery, fleshy halls, and treating their players to a full fiendish experience, some better than others. Not all of the titles in this video are worth playing, but at least they've nailed their respective versions of Hell. I'm Ashton from TripleJump, and here are 10 devilish video games set in Hell. Number 10, Agony. Starting out with by far the worst game on this list, Agony is a depressingly grim first-person survival horror in which players take control of a martyr, a lost soul condemned to hell. While the game was panned by both critics and players upon release, for its tedious gameplay, repetitive missions, and nauseating for nauseating's sake's gore, it at least succeeded in its goal of letting its players experience hell. Those willing to suffer through this game will have their work cut out for them as they possess the bodies of other tormented souls and solve obtuse puzzles, all while trying to give ravenous roaming demons the slip. The over-reliance on bloody and sexualized imagery means this is a game intended for mature audiences only, especially when it comes to the new and improved unrated version, which dials the nudity and gore up to 11. That said, the churning lakes of fire, walls of viscera, roving horned demons and writhing masses of half-naked bodies come together to create many stomach-churning scenes, and may be the closest thing to the Christian version of Hell we'll ever see in a game. I would certainly change my ways if I know I was going to end up here when I died. Still, best avoid the agony of playing this one. Number 9, Dread Templar. The only reason Doom didn't make it onto this list is because the vast majority of its runtime is spent on Mars rather than in Hell. But that is not the case for the not one, not two, but 3 Doom clones on this list. Dread Templar is the first, a modern take on the blood-soaked shooters of the 90s, in which players must become the scariest thing in Hell, as they rip and tear through hordes of demonic beasties. The retro graphics and non-stop blasting at legions of bullet sponge fiends may not be to everyone's taste, but for fans of the old school, the game is well worth a shot. With dozens of weapons to collect, 100 upgrades, and plenty of secret areas to find, all for around the quarter of a price for a AAA game, there's plenty to keep players busy as they dive ever deeper into the bowels of Hell. While not as grisly as the previous entry's version of Hell, the blood-red skies, arid desert, and poisonous swamps give Dread Templar's Hell its own unique feel that keeps things fresh and never outstays its welcome. It might not be the most polished, but when you shoot demons, they explode in a cloud of gore. What more could you want? Number 8, Ultra Kill. Doom clone number 2, Ultra Kill, takes things back even further into the past, with some incredibly stylized and blocky polygons, and an even greater emphasis on speeding, strafing, and shooting things so they erupt in a geyser of blood. With thousands of positive reviews, this game comes highly recommended for those looking to spend a long weekend in Hell. Mankind is dead, Hell is full, and blood is fuel. That is the premise of Ultra Kill. Taking control of V1, a robot fueled by the blood of his enemies, players are tasked with ascending through the 9 levels of Hell, slaying enemies and pulverizing bosses until all lie dead at their feet. Juggling between 6 varied weapons, players are encouraged to get up close and personal with Hell's demonic denizens, not just because they are graded by a Devil May Cry-esque combo meter, but because they literally need to bathe in their enemy's blood to heal. The version of Hell Ultra Kill presents to its players is a blocky, pixely mishmash of gothic stone and hard metal corridors reminiscent of early Doom games, but with enough variety on offer to keep things from getting monotonous. Yes, the textures may be rough, deliberately so, but you'll be too focused on zipping around and blasting baddies to notice. Number 7. Clive Barker's Jericho. Best known for creating the Hellraiser series, English horror author Clive Barker has also dipped his toes into the world of video games. He helped produce 4 games in total, but by far the most well known is Clive Barker's Jericho. The game got mixed reviews when it released in 2007, and it's definitely not great, but fans of squad-based shooters and survival horror may still get a kick out of it. While not technically set in Hell itself, Jericho is set in a Hell-adjacent nightmare realm, held within an ancient artifact called the Box, which I say is close enough. Stepping into the heavy black boots of the supernatural Jericho squad, players are tasked with entering the Box to prevent the escape of powerful demonic entity, the Firstborn. Controlling each member of the squad at different intervals, players must make use of supernatural abilities, such as summoning fire demons, slowing time, or firing guided bullets, and a variety of weapons to mow down waves of gruesome hellspawn. The muddy, washed-out grey and brown visuals may not hold up against modern titles, but they certainly fit the dingy aesthetic the game was going for, and alongside the creepy enemy design and sound, it nails its foreboding atmosphere. Oh, and as if that wasn't pulpy enough already, there's also an ex-Nazi scientist to contend with. Number 6. Metal Hellsinger. The third and final Doom clone on this list, Metal Hellsinger, takes the visual style, fast-paced shooting and gory finishes you know and love, but adds interesting flair in the form of rhythm action bonus. Yes, not only does this game have a banging metal soundtrack, but if players fire in time to the beat, they deal more damage and rack up more points. Taking control of the Unknown, a part human, part demon on a quest for vengeance, players are given plenty of demon-slaying weapons with which to wreak havoc as they slaughter their way through the fiercest layers of hell, all in order to topple the Red Judge and reclaim the Unknown's stolen voice. In practice, this involves blasting away at Hell's twisted denizens with shotguns, dual-wielded pistols, and a bone sword in time to the pulse-pounding beat of the music. The more in time a player's shots are, the more damage they will deal, and the more intense the heavy metal will become, until you're in full-on headbanging mode. Hellsinger's version of Hell looks like something ripped straight out of the pages of Paradise Lost, with everything from typical fiery chasms and gothic ruins to frozen seas and ice-blasted cathedrals. Got to admit, I didn't expect Hell to sound this good. Number 5. Shadows of the Damned. Coming home to witness someone you love being kidnapped is never going to be a fun way to end the day, but it gets even worse when the one doing the kidnapping is the Lord of Hell itself. But that's precisely the predicament Shadows of the Damned protagonist Garcia Hotspur finds himself in at the start of the game when his girlfriend Paula is abducted by Fleming, aka the Lord of Demons. Garcia decides the only course of action is to dive into the underworld after them, and that's where the player comes in. Taking control of Garcia and using his newfound friend Johnson, a sarcastic skull, as in turn a gun, a torch, and a motorcycle, players must decimate demons and solve puzzles to keep the darkness at bay in their search for Paula. With favourable reviews and plenty of fiendish bosses, this is a fun game that doesn't take itself too seriously and flew under the radar of many players when it first came out. Shadows of the Damned's Underworld takes the form of a dreary stone city, perpetually bathed in moonlight and overrun with zombie-like demons. While it's missing the usual fire and brimstone, its environment still feels suitably gothic and overbearing. A hell for those who don't like the heat, perhaps. Number 4. Saints Row: Gat Out of Hell. In case the pun in the subtitle didn't give it away, or the fact that it's a Saints Row game, Gat Out of Hell doesn't take itself seriously in the slightest. This standalone version of Saints Row 4 sees the boss kidnapped by the devil during a birthday party, and tasks players with taking control of either Johnny Gat or Kinsey Kensington as they tear Hell a new one on their quest to get them back. equipped with new angel wings that allow the characters to soar through hell to their heart's content, as well as summon imps to attack foes or surround themselves in a holy aura. Players are granted total freedom as they explore the districts of New Hades, take down demonic archdukes, and wage war on the devil himself. Boasting talking guns, cameos from historical figures such as Blackbeard and William Shakespeare, and a full-length musical number, it's safe to say this is about as far away from Agony's version of hell that you could possibly get. Saying that, New Hades still has that traditional apocalyptic look typical of hell. Ruined skyscrapers, blood-red skies, gouts of lava, the usual, only with a much more cartoonish vibe. If this is what hell's actually like, I wouldn't mind a stay. Almost looks like fun. Number 3, After Party. College nights out, in pop culture at least, typically end only one way: getting blackout drunk and waking up the next morning with absolutely no memory of what happened the night before. Bonus points if the luckless protagonist wakes up in a place they don't recognise. This is essentially the inciting incident for indie game After Party, except the place protagonists Milo and Lola wake up is in hell. Naturally peeved with their newfound predicament, Milo and Lola discover once you're in hell, there's only one way to leave: outdrink the devil in a drinking contest. What follows is a charming, witty, and occasionally heartwarming romp through the underworld, challenging demons and monarchs of hell to drinking competitions until the player is ready to face Lucifer himself. While not as twisty and mind-bendy as the developer's previous title, Oxenfree, the game makes use of the same ingenious conversation system, allowing for dynamic and realistic chats in which a single decision can sway the course of the story. After Party's version of hell is very different to the previous titles mentioned, as it takes on a form of a college town, where, after a long day of torturing, both demons and humans get together for a few drinks and a party when the sun goes down. Just like uni. Number 2, Hades. Not technically set in hell, but the Greek underworld is the next best thing, being filled with fire and monsters and tormented souls as it is. While the majority of Hades takes place within various levels of the underworld, the entire goal of the game is to get out. Of course, that's easier said than done. Playing as Zagreus, son of Hades, players must fight their way out through Tartarus, Asphodel, Elysium, and eventually the Temple of Styx to reach the surface and claim their freedom. But this is the underworld, and if just anyone could leave, there wouldn't be a problem. So players are expected to die, and die again. Each time they die, they get a little bit stronger, a little bit wiser, and are given the opportunity to talk to and befriend many gods, demigods, and denizens of the land of the dead. Out of all the games mentioned today, this is by far the highest recommended, having earned itself rave reviews and a slew of awards. Hades' version of the underworld is wonderfully realised in the game's unique isometric painterly art style, and each location and character feels like they've been lifted straight from ancient Greek texts. Aside from the flame-spitting monsters and skeleton armies, this underworld looks almost peaceful. And number 1, Dante's Inferno. Basing a video game on a 14th century epic poem is an interesting choice. I would love to have been in the boardroom when that pick first came up, but somehow it worked. Taking the first part of Dante Alighieri's poem, mixing it with God of War style hack and slash combat, and some truly disturbing versions of hell and its denizens, Dante's Inferno might be the most hellish game there is. Taking on the role of Dante, now envisioned as a totally ripped Templar knight and not a middle-aged poet, players start the game by killing Death, taking his scythe, and diving into the 9 circles of hell in order to rescue the soul of Dante's beloved Beatrice. What follows is a non-stop tour de force of brutality, with Dante channeling his inner Kratos and tearing apart everything that stands in his way. Descending through each circle in turn, players will encounter famous faces from throughout history, including Cleopatra and King Minos, each twisted into a monstrous version of themselves, and butcher them horribly. While not the best game of all time, Dante's Inferno received mostly positive reviews, and is a fine way to switch off your brain and while away a few gruesome hours. I don't remember much of my GCSE poetry classes, but I'm certain they weren't this bloody.